are listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. All right, so today's conversation is all about our wonderful furry friends and communicating with these animals, as we are joined by international animal intuitive Scimeca. And I'm so pumped for y'all to dive into this conversation with as there are so many takeaways and nuggets of inspiration for really anyone, but mostly in particular those who are interested in better understanding what their pets are trying to communicate to them, or are curious about just communicating with even those animals or pets who have already passed over. This is such a fun conversation, and Em is just, she's such a light, as, you know, she has really just dedicated her work and life's purpose to truly just creating resources for humans looking to connect more deeply with their animals, the earth, and she does so much. Definitely go check her out on Instagram for sure, but she also holds sacred animal intuitive sessions for private clients and provides different mentorship and business support for other fellow animal communicators or anyone who is interested in kind of tapping in, because we all have so many different gifts. And I believe we talk about it in the episode too, but you know, we are all really capable of this and are all just capable of so much magic. So it's exciting. And I personally, some of you know a little bit about my story as it pertains to animal communicators or animal psychics, as you may have heard the term used previously, but I have not personally had a session with but I am very much looking forward to in the near future for both of our puppies, as we have, well, both of our dogs. We got a new puppy recently, and we now have two wonderful Australian Labradoodles who are part of our family. Maverick, our newest addition, the puppy we have, I think he actually makes himself known at one point in our conversation, which is very fun and just very true to his personality, in addition to as well. But what I just wanted to say is that if you are interested in working with an animal intuitive, I highly recommend it. I had a session last year with a different individual, and it was so insightful, so hilarious, and just so cool to see your pet's personality really come through in the reading. It's just so fun. I highly recommend it. And then equally, it is also such a beautiful closure to communicate as well with any pets that have already crossed over. I had lost my old dog, Callie, quite traumatically a few years ago, and she has popped in for many of my readings, not only with an animal communicator, but also with traditional mediums as well. But in traditional mediumship, communicating with animals can be just a little bit different than humans. So anyway, I will let y'all learn all about it with I won't say anything more, as she is truly just so knowledgeable in her area of expertise. But before we jump into this conversation, I did just want to mention one of my exciting new offers that just dropped a couple weeks ago through my holistic wellness business, Ambu, as I released Modern Minimal Smoothies, which is an ebook filled with 33 unique recipes, all with 5 ingredients or less. This ebook is $7.99, that's $7.99, and also comes with my morning sunlight meditation, plus additional tips for smoothies, recommendations, listed benefits, all the things, you know, through my own health journey and in working with my clients as well. Adding a smoothie to your day is honestly one of the best things you can do to truly nourish your mind, body, soul, and spirit. One of the things I found that it's just so many recipes and food combinations have gotten so complicated over the last couple of years. It feels intimidating to just even attempt to try something new. So often instead, we just don't do it. I mean, I do that myself, which is why I created Modern Minimal Smoothies so that you can get back to your smoothie game, start your day off right, give your serotonin levels a boost while equally treating your digestion with respect. There are recommended boosters with each of the smoothies, so you can spice them up if you choose. And as always, I always recommend following your intuition before consuming or creating anything, as at the end of the day, you are truly the only one who knows what is best for your body. So if you want to check out Modern Minimal Smoothies, again, you can grab it for $7.99 following the link in the show notes. And you will also receive my special morning sunlight meditation with the ebook. So if you are interested in learning more about my holistic wellness business and just ways to nourish your mind and body, I highly recommend also joining my private Facebook group, which is a modern wellness community. And I will leave it at that. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode with the animal intuitive herself, Scimeca. Enjoy, and I will see you on the other side. Well, welcome to the podcast. I am truly just so excited to hold space with you today. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited that we're finally getting to connect after being in the same spheres for a while.
Same. Yeah, this feels very fitting and very timely. So I'm quite excited myself.
Absolutely.
But we were just talking about our pets and everything before we got on here, and you are an animal intuitive, and some of my listeners have heard of some of my I had an animal communication story like I was mentioning to you with our one dog Mocha a little bit ago, so some of my listeners know that story, but I was just so enthralled with the concept of the work and the communication and everything that takes place. So I'm honestly so excited to dive in.
I'm excited to talk about it because I literally get to talk to people's pets all day, and it's the best job in the world.
Literally best job ever. That's what I thought.
Yes. And I mean, I've had my share of terrible jobs as well. We recently went all in full time with this business just last July, but pandemic time doesn't count because it's all over the place.
Literally non-existent.
Exactly. So it's almost been a year that I've been running this animal communication business full time, and it's been ups and downs, but really, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's been so better than a cubicle. That's all.
Better than a cubicle. Such a good phrase. So you're in upstate New York. Do you take clients? Do you do sessions virtually, kind of all over at this point?
Yeah, so most of my work is virtual. Even before the pandemic hit, I'm a hermit, at heart. I'm a homebody. I love being at home. Occasionally I'll venture out in public, which is fine. But I have done a couple of house calls up here, but I much prefer doing them virtually because I can just connect with more people that way, surprisingly. Once things do open up around here, I am going to try to connect more with the farmers market situation, because the city where I live, we have this huge farmers market every week in the summer, and it's several blocks long. There are bands and just food trucks, and it's just so much fun, and everyone brings their dogs. And in the years before, I've been I just enjoyed going because I loved seeing everyone's dogs. I've lived up here for 6 years now. But I've only known that I've been an animal communicator and an animal intuitive for 3 years max. So yeah, I would love to just have an excuse to talk to people's pets and have them pay me for it in person. What a great way to spend a Saturday. Pick up some produce, hang out with the pets.
All the pets come to you. Oh my gosh.
They normally do anyway. Yeah. I've always been the person at parties that ends up hanging out with the cat or the dog or like the hamster or just like anything like off from the main conversation and just hang out with the pets. And I feel like a lot of people are that way. Yeah.
Cool. So before we get into, so I'm going to have you explain what an animal intuitive is for anyone who's listening and is confused when we're talking about communicating with animals. Mm-hmm. But with your connection, do you feel that you've actually been like an animal in lifetimes before this one? And that's why your gifts are so connected?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I've had an animal past life, but I do know that I have had a past life somewhere else, like up in my, oh my God. I feel like this is a part of it. Like, you know how in past lives when all of this, like, all this stuff happens when you have intuitive gifts and you like can't talk about it. And then your throat chakra starts like acting
That's what I was just thinking. I have like chills right now. Yes.
I've literally been fine all morning, haven't talked to anybody. It could also just be the cheese I ate before recording, but we're going to go with
we'll go with the throat chakra.
Absolutely. So yeah, from what I've gathered, and I've talked to other animal intuitives about this too, a lot of the times the animal communication gift skill kind of runs in families. I've been told that it runs along like the mother's side. So I'm excited to maybe pass that down one day. But I'm also excited because like this means I've had ancestors like in my family who have had this gift and maybe weren't able to talk about it, because I know my mom is incredible with animals and she understands them like better than anyone else. She's always been the type of person to like see a baby bunny in the yard that was like separated from its mom and like the dog almost trampled it and like we rescued it and like kind of brought it to the vet or whatever. We've like fished moles and voles out of the pool. We've like seen baby birds and like all of this stuff. My life and my mom also have just been like so intertwined with animals, but she doesn't really understand like the communication side of it in like the spiritual woo kind of sense. She's just like, this is what the dog wants right now. And the thing is, I think everybody can communicate with animals. Humans all have the same hardware. It's just the software that needs like upgrading and adjusting. So no animals, but I'm sure that I have incarnated as an ancestor of mine before. Yeah. Who has had the gift. I also do know that I feel like this is very common with people who have spiritual gifts now, but like I've definitely had a past life where like I was the witchy type person in town and then like my son had a tragic death and then like the circumstances were very weird surrounding it and people shunned me and then I was like burned at the stake or something. Who wasn't, right?
Exactly. Totally. I mean, still
probably some people haven't, but
right.
I mean,
a lot of us though. I mean, I hear like a cop car siren go by and I'm like, oh God, they're coming to get me. Like today's the day. So totally feel that.
For me, it's like, is it past life trauma or is it anxiety, you know? Or is it both?
Right. Yeah. Very fine line. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's jump into it. So what specifically is an animal intuitive or how are you communicating with these animals?
Yes. So this is fun and it's also a little weird and it's also hard to describe, but it's basically a glorified way of explaining that I've always been really good with animals and I've always just known what they wanted. And when I was a kid, I would like pretend that I was having conversations with them and like make up the replies and I would hear them in my head. And honestly, that's been happening longer than just when I was a kid. Like even like at a college party and someone had a cat, I'd be like, hey, what's your story? Like, tell me everything. And I would just kind of know things that the owners like wouldn't have told me beforehand because like I'm just a random person showing up for a party. And it's always been really fun with that. So I only started realizing that animal communicators were a thing a couple of years ago. I always thought it was like a scam. Like I really thought people were just like making stuff up. Is it okay if I curse on here? I just wanted to check. Okay. Making shit up, you know?
Yeah.
But as like, I'll probably get into this later with like how I started realizing my gifts and everything like that. But an animal communicator just really knows what an animal wants or needs at any given time. I like to call myself an animal intuitive because I feel like my psychic abilities have like opened up a lot in the past couple of years. So it's not just communicating with them with like reading their body cues or like listening to their tone or anything like that. It's also kind of having a connection to like something else at the time. So it makes sense that when I was having a conversation with a random cat at a party and I suddenly pictured like a really tall tree or something, like the cat would have been stuck in the tree. Like,
yeah,
that's like a very broad example and honestly doesn't sound like that convincing. But if I like, I'm sure if I could give like a better example, it'd be like, whoa,
totally. Which
yeah,
I'm sure we'll get into.
We will get into, I'm sure we've got time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's so fascinating and also something that I truly feel everyone should do with their animals. But before we get into all that, how did you uncover these gifts? Like, what is that story? When did that really kind of happen?
Yeah. So, you know how the universe leaves you little breadcrumbs everywhere when you're supposed to start learning about something or start research something, start to connect with other people about it. That's what happened to me in like early 2019 or late 2018. I had a guinea pig named Winnie. He was adorable. And the entire time that I had him, he was sick on and off. He had like chronic bladder stone issues. So he'd be fine for a while and then like he'd start flaring up a little bit with like his symptoms and stuff. And I was like, this is really sad, but I'm here to love you, so it's fine. And then January 2019, he had like a really big bladder stone that was like the size of his bladder. Oh. And a lot of people don't really recommend doing any type of surgery on small animals and guinea pigs especially because they're very small and it hits them really hard. Recovery is hard. But like as a pet owner and their caregiver, you still want to try. So when I had originally planned, like he had a regular vet that he saw, he had bladder x-rays pretty often, and we planned to have surgery done by my vet at a certain time. However, he was sick on the weekend and he looked like he was about to die. He had slowed down a lot. He had stopped eating. And I was like, oh no, this is it. I rushed him to the emergency vet. That's like way closer than my usual vet. So I'm like, nobody really in the area knows how to deal with exotics and guinea pigs. So like taking him to this local vet is like really a crapshoot. And like, it's the weekend and it's the emergency vet, which is like 4 million times more expensive. Mm-hmm. But it was like perfect and divine because there was a surgeon there on staff who specialized in small animals, who was willing to do the surgery and is a colleague of Winnie's original vet. So like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, the surgery went really well. He recovered really well. And he had an extra few months with me that like, I would not trade for anything in the world. It was just so perfect to have. And it was really nice to hold him for like half an hour without him like nudging me every 2 minutes to put him back because he had to pee.
Yeah.
So during that time, I knew like that surgery wouldn't buy him time forever. I was just trying to appreciate all the time I had left with him. And during this time, I started getting those breadcrumbs, right? I remember walking into the library. I live in a city and like lived a couple doors down from the library, and I still do, different apartments, same city. And I remember just walking in and like walking up to like a random shelf and was like, I don't know what I need today, but I know the book that I'm going to find is going to be really important for me. And I closed my eyes. I went like, oh no, this is a podcast. You can't really see it. I closed my eyes. I like stretched my hand out, randomly waved it in front of things, landed on a book, pulled it out. The book was called How Animals Make Us Human by Temple Grandin. And it was beautiful. And I was like, this is a person that like connects with animals really well. I can't give you like the whole story of it because honestly, I didn't read it. I like put it on my bedside table for like 2 weeks and then returned it because like, I guess I wasn't ready. But the back of the book was all about like animals are here to help us like connect better as people and like teach us things that we don't even know. And our pets are amazing. And like animals in general send us signs and symbols or whatever. And I was like, this is cool, but I'm not ready to receive this. And then randomly, like on Instagram one day, I was like, What would happen if I looked up the okay, what if I looked up the animal communicator hashtag just to see what was up? And I found some people doing it. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. You can be an animal communicator. This can't be real. Is this real? And then I became one of the people that you can find in the animal communicator hashtag, which it's fine.
You're like, no, that's me.
I know. And I'm honestly not ashamed of it. I was super embarrassed about it for a long time and I didn't want to tell anybody. But that's besides the point. I tried to learn as much as I could to make Winnie as comfortable as possible. Like if he needed my help crossing over to the other side, what I could do to keep him comfortable, like what snacks he wanted, just like end of life care things that anyone would really do for their pet that they loved, So once Winnie passed, I never really got the hang of it. I could kind of pick up that like maybe he wanted help passing, but also, I didn't make that connection until just now. I'll let you know what that is. I took it really hard on myself because I was like, I think he's saying that he wants me to bring him into crossover, but like I can't tell. And now I'm second guessing myself, and now I'm not sure. Imagine being like the sole caregiver of one of your first pets and like realizing that you need to be the one to decide if they live or die or not. That's horrible.
I was experience that.
It's not
horrible.
Fun. I do not envy anyone who goes through that. I feel for you 100%. It's devastating. And throw into the mix like someone just connecting to their animal communication skill for the first time and being like, this is the first significant problem I'm trying to solve with this thing. And if I make it wrong, he'll just die. So like no pressure. It's fine. And the connection I just made was that I realized he was kind of asking for support with crossing over, but not in the way that it meant bringing him to the vet to be put down, right? So what happened was I was home when it happened. I was like making lunch. I was doing whatever. I saw that he was like not looking amazing. I put him on the couch. I was trying to give him some critical care, which is like the emergency hand feeding syringe stuff. And he wasn't really taking it. And then I just like knew it was about to happen. And he knew it was about to happen, obviously, because animals just know. And they have that look. And I picked him up and I put him on my lap. I'm going to cry. I
feel like I'm going to cry.
Yeah. Anyone listening, feel free to cry. We'll do it together. Yeah. I literally had him on my lap and like felt the last breath leave his body. And then he was just gone. And I was like instant sobbing, took like a week off of work. It was a rough time. So in the middle of all of this, I had just launched a podcast that I don't really keep up with anymore. And part of the thing I was doing about it was like meditation. It's cool. It doesn't have to be stuffy. Let me tell you all about it. Meditation can be like when you're washing your dishes. Meditation can be like, so like cheesy stuff. Like, It's fine. It's cool. It was like an $11 ebook and I was just happy to like have something to do with life, right? And this is so embarrassing to talk about because I was like fresh off of losing Winnie, trying to live my life. It was like a month and a half after he passed. And I was just like minding my own business, meditating a little bit, seeing what happens, clearing my mind, whatever, And all of a sudden Winnie just shows up and I'm like, I'm making this up. There's no way that this is real. And he's like, thank you for being with me when I passed. It like meant so much to me. And of course it was hard to go, but like, I get chills with this part too. He's like, the reason why I needed to step aside, which is like such a higher self, like,
yes,
zoomed out perspective of like, it's not death, it's stepping aside. I had to step aside so that you would stop relying on physical cues from an animal when trying to connect with them. And so that you can start to realize that, surprise, you can also talk to animals that are on the other side. And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Oh my God.
Like, what is that? Is this real? And he's like, yeah, huh?
Yeah, girl.
He didn't say it quite like that, but he was adorable and I wouldn't put it past him. Anyway, that's how that happened. And then I was like, there's no way this is real. And I grew up very religious. I grew up in a Catholic household. Anything that's not like an angel or a saint or something like that connecting with you is Satan's work, you know? Like it's just, it is a demon trying to get in touch with you. And that was something that I had my entire life. Like we went to church every week growing up. I went to a Catholic high school. I went to a Catholic college. And it's stopped in a church. Like from almost like, I knew you needed to get back to church, but now that you can talk to dead animals, like I know. I know it's real. So that was really fun to navigate. I was really depressed. And like, it was during eclipse season, which like shit always happens during eclipse season, right?
Always.
And I was,
speaking of, what a great time to record a podcast.
I know, we just so that's why it took so long for me to like get everything. Okay. Yeah. So we love eclipse season. It's happening now if you're listening like a year or it's like 6 months from now. But yeah, you know how you're supposed to like let shit go during eclipses? I had to let shit go about like playing small and hiding this gift that I have and hiding the abilities that I had because I didn't talk about it on Facebook because I had Catholic school friends there and my parents and my family. And I had planned not to tell anybody, honestly, and just have it be a thing that I did, maybe on the side. I had just started like running an online business, doing a little bit of coaching. Excuse me. Oh gosh. Doing a little bit of coaching. And I had my first like paid animal communication reading for a pet that was alive. And I actually did a couple of those and it was super weird. And I was like, oh, I'm getting this, but I don't know if it's right. So like, you might think it's something else. And anyway, I hope that helps, you know? Yes. But like people were like, how the fuck did you know this?
They're like no, that's spot on.
Yeah, there's no way that you would know that we had an upstairs neighbor that is really heavy-footed and like the cat hates it too. That's really spot on because whenever she hears it, she freaks out. And I talk about this reading a lot. I think about it a lot because it was one of the biggest ones that I did that made like such a huge impact and the family was like so grateful and like I know them. So they tell me how great it was and how meaningful it was all the time. And it's a great confidence booster, honestly. So
you need those in the journey.
You really do when you have something like that, because it's so easy to psych yourself up in your brain and be like, this isn't real. That's not real. That's not an experience. You're not good enough to do this. You don't have whatever.
I'm
true.
In that. Yeah. I get it's like tough messages for clients and I'm like, nah, or like, they don't want to hear me say that. And then I'm like, no, just, and then, you know, and then when you do, it's like, oh, so.
That's actually, I'll get back to that because I really enjoy working with people who have these gifts and like, don't know what to do with them and are like, but I think it's this. And I'm like, trust me, you're fine. Yes, but with this reading, it was a dog who had to be rehomed from their family because she belonged to like the grandparents, and then the daughter came home with her son, and like they were staying there for a while. They were playing and hanging out, and the dog bit the kid, and they had to rehome the dog. Actually, I don't know who the dog belonged to, but that's besides the point. They wanted to check in around her to see if there were any hard feelings. They were thinking about getting another puppy, and they kind of felt guilty because if they wanted a puppy, they should have just kept the original one. Not the case. So overall, animals come into our lives for very specific reasons at very specific times. And for this family, in this case, the dog like fulfilled what was happening and knew that it was time to move on to another thing, whether that was like, it was literally being rehomed to like a younger couple. where there weren't any kids and like it was totally fine. And there were things in that reading that I said that they were like, that we did call the kid the baby. It wasn't a child, but like that's what you do with like kids sometimes in families, which I don't know. I don't have any children. And I found out that the reason why she bit him was because he grabbed onto her tail. And like, of course that's going to happen with like a dog feeling like it's being like attacked. It's just going to, like, that was a really dramatic noise for a dramatic experience, to be fair.
You know what's really funny, to interrupt you for a second? I don't know if you could see. So my puppy Maverick is here. He just came behind me and like for a second, his tail was kind of poking out from under my underarm, like right before you mentioned about the child grabbing the tail.
Ooh, interesting.
So, yeah.
Animals are so perceptive.
Mm-hmm. Completely.
Yeah. I wonder what no, for sure. I wonder what Maverick is like trying to say with that. Can I see? Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Maverick, come here, buddy.
Hi,
Nobody
cutie.
Can see, but
he is a very cute little dog that's like chocolate brown, black.
Yeah,
with
chocolate
like
brown with white. Yeah.
Adorable.
Little tuxedo.
Oh, that's so cute. So fancy.
So fancy.
So fancy. But yeah, there are just things in that reading that like the people who wanted it didn't tell me about. And I came back with that confirmation and they're like, you changed our lives with this. I don't know what to do. Like we printed this out and put it on the fridge. And one of my friends actually like gave the reading to them as a gift. And like, she went home to visit. And she just walked in to see everybody crying. And like, she saw the thing posted on the fridge and she's like, Em did this.
I love that.
It is really sweet to like have such an impact and be like the bridge between animals and their people, because oh my God, animals are just here for so many beautiful things in our lives.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad for the people who just like don't vibe well with animals and are just like, not my thing, because they are literally just a conduit for spirit and are literally just like fuzzy, feathery, scaly spirit guides here that snuggle with you.
Yes.
And sometimes pee on your bed.
Yep. Sometimes bite you on accident. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question, which I don't remember what it was?
Absolutely. No, okay. That was amazing. And that actually kind of like perfectly segues into my next question of specifically like, why might people be interested in communicating with the animals who are here physically? Like, what are some of the different, maybe like pockets of guidance that it can provide to people or might get their interest?
I'll start that answer with a lot of people just really want to know, like, is there anything I can do to like make my dog happier? Like, does he like his life here? What was it like before we adopted you? Like all of these cute, adorable questions, which just makes it's so nice to see how people are just like, am I doing enough for you? I love you. Like that's such a human thing. It's
so human.
With like people who love their animals, they want to do whatever they can for them. But so when I do readings for people and they come in with things like that, or they're just like, I just want to know whatever they're trying to tell me. Like I'm open to receive anything. Just chat and let me know what's going on. Those are fun too, because a lot of the times, well, in general, our animals see way more than we think they do. And our animals pick up on way more than we think they do. Because have you ever just like walked your dog down the street and like it generally loves a lot of people, but there's one person it just doesn't trust?
The lady across the street from us, our other dog Mocha, who is like, we joke that she's a monk and like took a vow of silence in this lifetime because she does not bark or make noise except at this one woman. When she comes home, she growls at her for like 10 seconds and then like she's done through the window. So yes.
I love that. Animals are like a huge judge of character. They pick up on a lot. And especially, you know, how like you just feel better sitting with your pets at the end of the long day, taking a nap with your dog or cat, even like emotional support animals or therapy dogs, animals in hospitals with their little visitor badges, just like sitting with patients all day. Animals literally make us feel better. They help to alleviate those like lower frequencies of like fear, stress, sadness, anxiety, and like take that on themselves and help to transmute it. Actually, something that I really think Winnie was for me. I'm pointing at the picture on the wall, like y'all can see him. You can't, but remember from before, Winnie. During that time in my life, I was like heavily anxious and depressed and like dealing with panic attacks and a little bit of agoraphobia and just like having a not great time. And Winnie was literally, oh shit. Okay. Another realization just happened, y'all. Okay. So something that I was dealing with was more like self-expression and creation. And like, I want to be a business owner, but I have no idea what that's going to be. Turns out I would run an animal communication business, which I figured out later after starting one originally. But what I was dealing with was like a block of like self-expression, very much like sacral, can I talk today? Sacral chakra stuff, which is all about creation, self-expression. And also you might realize that the bladder system lines up with the sacral. So Winnie was literally transmuting stuff and like having it be like a blockage in his
That's what
body
I
in
was
the
just
same
thinking.
spot.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Which was just so sweet and so noble. Just like he's literally here to be a healer. And it almost makes you feel bad when you're like, I'm literally a little bit crazy. And now I made my animals sick. Don't feel bad. That's not true. It's like they signed up for this. This is why they're here. And sometimes they need a little bit more help, like transmuting stuff. It's a little harder for them to shake off. For Winnie, it was because he's so small. So sometimes they do need a little additional help, like going to a vet and getting medication or like surgery in some cases, or literally just extra attention and love from you. If you know any energy healing, you can try to do that on your animals as well.
Cool. It's so interesting when you say that because I was just saying how our dog Mocha, who we are our soul connection is unlike anything, but I was just saying how silent she is. And I've been really working the last year and a half since it kind of started right before we got her to open my throat chakra and fully speak my truth and just completely open up there. And as you were saying that, I was like,
a lot of the times our animals are here to be mirrors for us or to like help us realize things in ourselves that we never would have thought ahead of time, because it's so much easier to see it when it's removed from you and it's like someone else's problem to solve if you're not like that introspective quite yet.
Yeah.
So that's a really beautiful thing. And most of the time people just come into it and are like, I just love my animals so much. I just want to know what they have to say. And then I've been doing a lot of mini readings recently, and I almost feel bad about it because they're like, what can I do to make my dog less anxious? And a lot of the times it's just like, you need to chill. They're picking up on you. So like, here are some things that they're telling you would be helpful in this situation. Go hiking more, take a break, do whatever. And sometimes they're just like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about how this would relate back to me. And I feel a little bit seen right now. So thanks.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love this so much. So
Yay.
On the other side of that, kind of, what about someone who has maybe a dog who is like, I don't know, barking constantly or try to go to bed and the dog is like waking them up in the middle of the night, or cats, or I'm like using dogs, but really it's any animal who just feels totally almost like out of alignment with the human. Is there a purpose or something there that the animal is like trying to communicate that we humans aren't able to see?
Yeah, I try to not make generalizations like this because it might be true for one person having the situation, and for the other, it might be that like your dog or your cat has a stomach problem and is just trying to puke somewhere else, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it can be a variety of things that are really the underlying cause of that. But there are a lot of times when there's more of like an underlying current in the person's life that the animal is trying to highlight, kind of like what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
And I definitely see this in like a variety of animals. I just happen to talk to dogs the most. Like, for example, there was a energy worker that I did a reading for a little while back, and she was like, this dog is my baby, and I don't know why they're suddenly treating me like this, but this dog has started to bite me, and like I have a scar from it, or like a fresh like bite on the face from it, and like I really don't know what's happening. Obviously this is really scary. We're going to be expanding our family at some point. Like I just want to make sure that like things are okay and we don't have to get rid of my first fur child, right? And one of the things that was happening with this person is that this energy worker was like not really closing off their fields or keeping their channel way too open and absorbing a lot of stuff. So what happened with that, the dog was trying to find a way to let the person know when it was happening, was struggling to find a way that would get a real reaction and like make them pause and take a step back and do something to take care of themselves. Like, I don't know, clean a bite, like put a Band-Aid on it, and like resulted to that. So during that session, we actually had like more of a conversation because the dog was in the room too. I don't necessarily need to like be talking to the dog, like looking at it in the eyes, reading the cues, because there's still that telepathic connection there. And that's like the primary thing. But I was like, okay, is there anything else that like you can maybe bring to your parent instead of like attacking them that would make them like understand what you're talking about, like a pre-agreed upon thing? This happened with one of my other guinea pigs too, Roger. He passed around Christmas, and he was like the first guinea pig I got. So like I miss him very much. But he did the same thing for a while when I was still like learning his personality and cues. When he was just a single pig, I've had 4 at my max. So like he was an only child for a while, and I still didn't really understand him, right? That's life. When he had to go to the bathroom, guinea pigs are very small and have small bladders. So maybe they'll last like half an hour on your lap before they have to like pee, poop or whatever, which is like, it's fine, but it's not like serious snuggling.
Yeah. Not gonna like Netflix and chill all night.
Well, he did later do that. Funny talking about Roger. He passed away because he had like a respiratory illness. And now I'm like coughing. Which could also just be like me being nervous talking about a podcast, but like you never know.
Yeah.
So with Roger, I think it is too. That's why I love like connecting those dots. So with Roger, he would just like, he would initially bite my skin and like pull at it to like let me know like I cannot be here right now. I have to go. Except I was reading that before. This was before I realized I had a gift, right? And I was like, I love him and he hates me and I don't know what's going on. And I was devastated. And then I was like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but like when you do that, that really, really hurts. And there is blood. So I'm curious if you can like do something else to let me know that you have to go back. I would appreciate that a lot. And then he started like tugging on my shirt, doing the same exact motion and not like biting my skin and like
so cool
drawing blood, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets better. It's actually really cute. So whenever I miss this face he makes so much. He would just like, he would pull at the shirt and with his mouth and like drag his head back and his neck up while he's like grabbing the shirt, obviously. But after a while with that, he just started making that face without grabbing anything. So he would just look absolutely ridiculous and like make this motion where he's like how do I describe this? It's so visual. Like really like straining his neck up, like there's a lot of resistance that he's grabbing, and just make this face like it's so, and I miss it so much because he would just do that whenever like he would need to go back. And then I started praising him so much for doing that. He would just do it like when he was waiting for me to give him like tomatoes or veggies or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
He was such a ham. He was so sweet. Just the cutest ever. So our animals are always trying to send us little messages and signals. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's like an underlying spiritual anything with it. So you could, like the energy worker I was talking about, you could just like try to have you could be having a problem where you don't realize you're not like cleansing yourself energetically enough, or you're letting more in than you should be, and your dog is trying to literally like tell you about it. So back to that story, because I can't follow a singular line, I guess. We had agreed on the call that the dog would bring like this specific dinosaur toy when the parent is like trying, like when the person really needs to like step back and like protect themselves. And like it worked afterward. This was like the first one-on-one call I really did. Otherwise it was just like email or whatever. And I was like, oh, I can't believe that worked. And it's real. I'm real.
So cool.
Yes. So it can definitely be like an energetic, spiritual, anything underlying thing, or they could just need to like go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So when you communicate with them, this might be a silly question. Are you communicating in like kind of more of that like psychic medium space where like your higher selves are communicating, or how does that work, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think it's a little bit of everything, because sometimes I do get direct messages from like the animal and what they want and what they're showing me and like what's happening with that. But at the same time, I start every session with like a little prayer that I channeled from my Akashic records. And I just like connect not only to the animal, but like I invite like my entire spiritual team there to like support me as well. And that includes like angels, spirit guides, my animals on the other side, which I love. I just recently realized I could invite them too. And like, it just feels so good to
I was going to ask
there.
you if they come too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Which is really sweet. And sometimes my highest self. And then sometimes if I'm feeling feisty, or if it like makes sense with the situation, I'll also invite like the person I'm doing the reading for's like team with me.
Cool.
So sometimes it's literally directly like, your dog is telling you this and this is why. Or sorry, I feel like we're saying dog a lot. Your parrot or your turtle is telling you this. But also it's a reflection, and they want me to remind you that this is happening. And also, I feel like this other message is coming from somewhere else in here, and I need to tell it to you anyway. Cool. And it really, like, that's what I love about doing those, like, in person and on Zoom readings, because it's literally just, like, you could be in here for one thing, and you'll leave with, like, more than you didn't know that you need. In the best way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? It is really magical, which is why, like, those are my favorite to do.
That's so fun. So we can do readings with any animal, any pet across the board, past or present. Does the age, for those who are present, does the age matter? No. Cool.
No. Yeah. Normally I just like connect from a picture. Sometimes if I'm there, like I obviously don't need like a picture if I'm right there. If I can see the dog like in the background on our Zoom call. But I have had some people ask me like, is a recent picture necessary? Which is a really good question. And I've never really thought about that before. But the answer is no. I can really work from any picture as long as I can like tell that that's the animal it is. Generally, I like to have my clients send me their favorite picture of the animal, or like them and the animal, just because it like means more to work from that way. Yeah. So cool. Literally any animal. I did a reading for a horse, which is like isn't really that out there, but like it doesn't happen to me that often. I've only read for like 2 or 3 horses. So when I saw like the picture pop up, I was like, it's a horse. It's really cute.
So cute. Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
It's fun.
For those who have crossed over then, do they, when you do those sessions, will you like feel them come into your presence, or how does that communication work?
Yeah. So I also teach this in like my animal communication program.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that you had a program.
Oh yeah. It's called Animal Magic, and it's coming out again June-ish, but it should be open. I don't know. I'll get into that later. I was answering a question, I think. I like to, this is part of the course, but like when you receive psychic information, not literally just even needing to be from animals, just in general, I'm sure you've heard of the clairs at this point, which are like the different ways of receiving like intuitive insight. So you've got like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, and there's another one in there, but it's basically like sight, knowledge. This sound. Is not in the right order. Sound. Sometimes
there's
people
like
break
ones,
up.
Like taste, smell. Like,
there's 30 of them, and people like keep making ones up, but like those are like the general basic ones. Not making them up. I want to say discovering them more instead. But you can feel like sometimes I will hear direct words that are being portrayed through. And if I'm doing a reading, I'll like, well, of course I'm doing a reading. That's why I'm connecting. If I'm doing an in-person reading, I'll be like, I'm hearing this. Mm-hmm. And if I'm doing like a mini reading, which is like over email, I'll do that in like quotes so they can get like the direct message that way. Sometimes I feel things physically in my body. Like I was connecting with an animal a couple days ago when I was doing a reading, and I felt like almost as if like the solar plexus energy center had like a black hole in it, but not that dramatically, like a hole and stuff was leaking out of it. Mm-hmm. Like kind of like a little bit of draining from that. And I was like, those always throw me off because I'm like, is it me? Because I also have health anxiety. So like any little twitch, I'm like, oh, that's a blood clot. Oh, this is it. So like those I don't get as often, but I will pick up on like emotions a lot. I feel those a lot. So I'll feel like an uplift of excitement sometimes. Sometimes I'll see like an actual picture that they're showing me. And that can be one of two things. Like it could literally just be, oh, this is funny. You know how in English class or something, they'd be like, the curtains are blue in the text. And your teacher would be like, that's because it means like it's an area of serenity. And like, it's just trying to make you see that this, and then the material of the curtains matter too. And then the author really just meant it's just blue curtains. It literally didn't mean anything. That's kind of how it is like in readings with me. So like I could see, like for example, I did a reading the other day where this dog was showing me a picture of like a tiny teddy bear. And I was like, this could literally be a toy that belongs to them, or a toy that they found and they lost, or it's a toy that belongs to someone else in the house and they want it to be theirs, or they're showing me like love and comfort through like a little tiny teddy bear. So it's sometimes really hard to like figure out which one they're trying to do. So normally I'm like, what? Can you tell me that in a different way? And they will. So,
yeah. Like, can we get a little more specific here?
Yeah. So that's generally not just with like animals who have passed either. I get that with like animals who are currently here as well. So you can receive information from an animal in like many different ways, and it'll vary based on like person to person. So in my program, I have people who are learning to communicate with animals, and like for examples, I'll like show them a picture, and one person might receive like, I saw a picture of this and I felt this, and someone else could say, I heard this and can feel like a breeze on my skin. You know, so it's very different, and it depends on the intuitive, which is really interesting too.
So interesting. Mm-hmm. That is so fun. I love this topic so much. So
me too.
We spoke a little bit about kind of an animal will come here to like be with us or help us with something. Is that kind of considered the way, you know, like you and I come into this world to discover our purpose, and everybody has a purpose, as everyone loves to talk about nowadays? Is that kind of the animal's purpose for being here, is to help the human it connects with what am I trying to say? With a human problem, for a very ineloquent way of saying that.
I know what you mean. It can kind of vary, of course, between each case. Like, for example, I totally believe that we have not just like how humans have soul contracts with each other to like find each other in this lifetime. And like your dad last time might be like your cousin this time, or like your boss from 3 lifetimes back might be your sister this time. Our animals also have soul contracts with us. So they know that we'll be meeting up with them in our lifetime for different reasons, or a predetermined reason, right? And the thing is, I also teach this in my program. So like, well, nuggets here, woohoo. An animal might have a specific purpose for you, but the same animal might have a different purpose for someone else. So that makes sense if you have like different people living in your household. For example, one of my guinea pigs, Frankie, I want him to love me. And when I say that, I mean like snuggle and like just hang out with me and just understand me. And like he loves me because I feed him and because I take care of everybody. But like he is best friends with my boyfriend, and it drives me crazy. Like I've known Frank longer than him, but like it's whatever. So for me, Frank is like teaching me that Franklin's here to teach me like you can still love someone and receive love, but like it doesn't have to be in the way that you might recognize it. So look for it in different ways. For my partner, he is like, Frank is there as a companion and to have general companionship and just like joy in that way. So it's totally different based on the animal. But if you zoom out even longer, larger, I don't know, way wider, not all animals are domesticated, right? And if you think about like the bushfires in Australia that were happening early 2020, which seems like 30 years ago at this point.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really does. Remember that happened?
I just in my head was like, wait, but when was that? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Really right before the pandemic really closed everything down. And everyone was like, save Australia, save the animals. And like, please do, because like a lot was happening. That sounded so like, please do, there's a lot happening. But those animals obviously aren't domesticated animals. Those are wild animals. And a lot of people in like the spiritual community, myself included, who like work with animal energy and understand that as well, also know that the purpose of these animals was to like leave Earth in that kind of way so that humans will be like, oh shit, this is happening and we need to do something to address it. You know? So like their purpose was to really just like kind of open the door a little bit so that we can like understand what's going on. Obviously, like feel free to disagree with me. I'm just like a girl sitting in my apartment alone. But there might be some people that are being like, well, these animals like didn't have to die. It's just like what, like, you know, like that's really like small-minded of you to say that. But like a lot of people even think that like before really catastrophic things like the pandemic happening really started, there are a lot of things that kind of like prepared us for it and like shook us a little bit, like the fires in Australia. Also Kobe Bryant, right? It was him, not like another. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
It was Kobe Bryant. You're probably asking the worst person right now, but I actually am like pretty certain on that. At least I hope I am.
I know. Rest in peace. But like, I'm not a sports person either. I'm like the crystal girl and the hang out with animals girl. I don't understand sports.
Or a like celebrity person either. So.
Oh yeah. I have no clue. But a lot of people are like, when events like these happen, it like prepares us for like what's to come because it like slightly changes the frequency. And like it really, at least when Kobe passed, it was like that shifted the frequency for us to like receive things differently when the pandemic really started to like get intense in February. And now that we're talking about sports and pandemics, we can reel that back. What was your question?
About animal soul purpose.
Yeah. So it could
But
really,
that's cool
it
though.
can
I'm glad
vary.
that you did mention that about the frequencies
Mhm.
because I just made personal connections there. So I definitely think that
Ooh,
those listening will as well. So
yeah.
that
Are
was
you open to sharing what that
purposeful.
is? Because like I'm curious. You also don't
Yeah,
have to. Okay.
absolutely. Well, I had
Yeah.
a really big event that took place before COVID happened. To me personally, it had to do with my old business. Kind of same thing, was like, oh, I need to do something. Started this, wasn't the thing. It was a whole big trademark issue that I was not aware of. Just a whole thing, definitely not the most ideal players in certain positions that
Mhm.
literally like opened my world, rocked it, shook it. My husband and I had just gotten married a couple months before that. So it's kind of like, everything's amazing. And then like, however, the pandemic was obviously, it was tough for all of us. We can't say, but there were silver linings for some of us, some of the collective as well. But I feel that that event shook me in that the pandemic was still a big deal. I don't want to discredit the size of it, but because of that frequency taking place, I believe that I had a different experience than maybe I would have had if that hadn't happened preceding the pandemic.
I totally agree. I feel like there are these things that like almost cosmically prepare us for what's about to happen, and we have no concept of what's about to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but we definitely have like better tools and skills to go forth into that with whatever little major or minor upgrade just happened to us that we have no idea about. Like the
Yeah.
butterfly effect or something.
Yes. Another
An
one too
animal.
on like a different scale from that, kind of more like the synchronistic moments. And then we'll
Mm.
get back to our conversation because this is not
Yeah.
about me. But my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, had a sudden chronic illness diagnosis, like came out of nowhere, rushed to neuro ICU, blah, blah, blah. A couple months before that, though, I had just discovered the medical medium and really opened up my whole side of my really soul remembrance to the healing properties of plants and fruits and vegetables. And it's all really common sense if we think about it. However, in his then journey that catapulted 2 months after that, it was we can't diagnose this. Here's the treatments. Here's all the prescriptions, the medications. This is like your prescription for life, basically. And I was like, no, there's another way that we can figure this out. We can, whole team it. We can all go through this together. But again, it's not a coincidence that for me, it felt like a soul remembrance opened up to all that before that happened. So
Definitely. There are definitely things that like pre-qualify us.
yes,
Or something like that.
totally. So
That's a
fascinating.
beautiful recognition of that.
Thank you.
Of course, not like a great event,
No,
but
one you would never want to happen. However,
yeah.
yeah, in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one kind of final question-ish that
Sure.
is more related to you and your personal journey, if you don't mind sharing, because I know a lot of our community resonates with you and just your experience of kind of opening up, uncovering your gifts, realizing you have this gifts. But then at the beginning, you mentioned you have a strong Catholic background and your family, and you had kind of hid it from people. If you don't mind, which totally honestly, like I do
Yeah.
this, I think we all do that. It's not surprising.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know what that journey was like for you, kind of like emotionally or just individually, as you did start opening up and kind of ripping those band-aids off.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think it's funny that we were talking about past lives earlier too, because I know for a fact that like this has to do with like stuff that I wasn't allowed to practice in the open in the past. So I especially have had this like ingrained fear. I share this, I will be rejected. For me, it meant that like if I tell my parents about this, they're going to disown me. I won't have family left. And I don't know if my parents are right about everything with like the religion we have, but like, what if they're right and I do go to hell, even though it doesn't feel like I'm doing the wrong thing? So there was a little bit of that inner struggle as well. The thing with that too is like, I realized it was definitely more of an in my brain thing. And like, my parents don't hate me. Well, it might be different with other people. Like I can't judge. I really feared for my safety. like I thought I could be disowned. So I wasn't planning to tell them, but then they saw that I was offering this stuff on my website. And at the same time, like I had like Akashic record readings listed, which was like a little new for me and a little out there. And I was like, whew, I feel like this is new, but I'm going to do it and it's going to be fine. And then I had a family member who followed me on Instagram tell their mom, who told my parents, and they were like, why are you taking money from people and lying to them? And I'm like, I'm not. And like, it just felt really bad. But it made me realize that I was going through all of these things and realizing I was like responding to like external things and letting that impact my sense of self and my purpose and my worth. And like, it was really helpful for me in the beginning to have those readings where like, they were just like hyping up my confidence, and like I could see how I was really helping people. And it made me think like, if this is how I'm meant to show up in the world, that feels right, because like I'm making a positive impact on people. I'm helping people. I'm bringing them peace, closure, a sense of love, all of these beautiful things. How can that be demonic? Like it really doesn't make sense to me. And then I had my whole like unlearning of the church, and then coming back to like the religion part of it that wasn't the organized patriarchal rewriting the Bible 200 years later, or whatever. So I'm in the middle of that journey, so I can't really talk about all of it yet.
Yeah.
But there's definitely more of like a relearning and reclaiming of that kind of stuff that I was so afraid of in the beginning. And I really thought that I was going to be disowned. I really thought that it was going to be a huge thing. And then when everything came to light, my parents were like, we don't hate you. You know that, right? We don't hate you. And like, I had a pretty good relationship with my parents growing up, but I just let like my anxiety and my overthinking and my past life trauma really just like get in there and help with that. Obviously, I can't say the same for everybody's relationship with their parents, or that your experience might be the same. But if you're also going through an experience of a spiritual awakening and you're afraid to tell the people that you love in your life, it is very scary. 2, what if it ends up being okay and like things work out in the best way possible? And if not, like you can still give yourself the love and support that you need in that moment too, because really zooming out way more, I think that our relationships are reflections of how we see ourselves inside. So if you're like, my partner doesn't really support me, I'm like, how are you supporting yourself? Where do you love yourself? That's not a personal example or anything, but it is. So there's definitely stuff with that. And your brain, your human brain is just trying to protect you. And even if it means like keeping you in a place where you're uncomfortable and you're scared and you're like, maybe your parents will accept you in your gift, or like your loved ones will accept you in your gift. But if you don't tell them and they never find out, you won't face the potential rejection. So let's keep you unhappy. Like, no worries. Accept all of the worries. Yeah. So recognize when your brain is just trying to keep you alive and safe, but not happy.
Love that. Mic drop.
Thank you. I was going to do that, but I paid a lot of money for this, so I'm not.
Yeah, totally.
The microphone, not that insight, although I've had my fair share of coaching.
Yes, absolutely. Such a necessity. Well, this was so wonderful. Where can people find you to connect further, or even book some sessions or do your course coming up? Because I think it comes out right around when this episode comes out soon.
Yeah. So you can connect with me on Instagram at Scimeca. It's just EMSCIMECA. Had to spell it all out in case you're not looking at the description. My website is also just mscimeca.com. You can book right now I'm doing like 75-minute readings, which we'll be doing we'll connect with any animal past or present. I can do like 2 to 3 max on a call, but then we'll also connect with like your Akashic records if needed, or I'll channel messages from your team or whatever. We'll see if you and your animal have had past lives together. Lots of fun stuff. And we really just take up that time to really like explore as much as possible in the space that you're ready to receive at that moment. So it's not like anything that's too much. It's the perfect amount for you at that time. So you can book that through my website. Those are pretty much, that should be available when you're listening to this. But I also have a animal communication course called Animal Magic. It is like a 8 or 10 module thing where you learn to communicate with your pet and essentially become an animal communicator. So you won't even need me afterward, and it'll help you connect with like animals in this life and also animals that have passed on. But if you're not fully ready to commit to that, I am doing a How to Talk to Animals masterclass on, looking at the calendar above my desk, June 11th. And if you're not there for it live, I'm sure you'll be able to get the replay. I plan on selling that. So depending on when you're listening to it, it's like $44 to attend the class. There's a Q&A at the end. And those are all the tangible things you need to know to connect with your pet. You don't have to be a pet psychic or an intuitive. It's literally like tangible stuff you can bring home and try with your pet that night. So yeah, you can find all of that stuff on my website or my Instagram. So
I love it. So fun. Well, Yay. Before we close out, I end all my episodes with some loving your own soul questions, which are just some kind of short on the spot questions so everyone can get to know you a little bit more than they do already. So when we were talking earlier, I actually don't remember if we were recording yet or not, but you mentioned that you're a projector in human design.
I am.
Do you know your sun, moon, and rising sign astrologically?
Yes. So I am a Cancer sun, Aries moon, Leo rising.
Cool. So I'm a Aries sun, Sagittarius moon, and a Cancer rising.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. And those, I know those water fire combinations are usually pretty psychic. So makes sense with your line of work.
Yeah. I have heard people say that like they've looked at my chart and been like, no wonder you're so psychic. You have like Cancer everywhere, or like your 8th house. And like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, thanks.
Cool.
Would have been great to know in the beginning of my journey, but here we are.
Yeah. Time doesn't exist, right?
Sure doesn't.
Yeah. Next question. If you were a flower, what type of flower do you think you would be?
I love that question. I don't know. I have like 6 answers in my head right now. First thought was hyacinth, but also could be a peony. Also could be lavender. I don't know, man. I'm like a patch of wildflowers at this point.
I love those. Be a beautiful bouquet. So fun. What is your favorite way or most ideal way to spend an intentional day by yourself?
Well, a lot of that time definitely includes time with my animals and my 2 guinea pigs, Bryce and Frankie. And really just giving myself the space to flow into whatever I want to do. I'm a quad right in human design, so the flowy everything is just like, it's good for me. I also really love spending time garden. So literally earthing, like bare feet in the dirt under your nails, picking tomatoes, you know. Good stuff.
Totally. Absolutely. I love that. I know guinea pigs are huge animals to you. Do you have any other specific spirit animals or anything in that realm that you work with or you feel also connected to?
I definitely feel like the guinea pig is a familiar for me in a little witchy sense. I don't necessarily work with any other. Oh, that's not true. Flamingo's been coming up a lot for me lately.
How fun.
Which is so fun. Yeah. It's really been teaching me to like be bold and just have fun and like get out there and like stand on one leg and do whatever and be bright pink. And
cool. Your shirt almost looks flamingo-esque actually, as you say that.
It does. I have a tarot deck. That's one of my favorites. It's called the Spirit Song Tarot. I'm not really good with like the card meanings, but like they're all like watercolor animals, and it's definitely my vibe.
Cool.
I didn't realize Flamingo was working with me until I pulled that card, and then I was like, wait, I got the Flamingo shower curtain from the kids section at Target, and I loved it, and I didn't know why. Yeah, cool.
The flamingo, what a fun answer. I love that.
It is fun. Yeah.
All right, final question that I end all my episodes with. When did your exploration to diving deeper into your own soul first begin, and how has it evolved since then?
Oh, that's such a good question. You know what? I want to say, like, my senior year of college, I was a very sheltered kid before going away to school. And as soon the first boy that volunteered to pretend to like me, I was like, I'll date you for 3 years and then I'll feel like I have to marry you. Great. As you do, right?
Yep.
And then I realized, like, yo, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. And it made me like start to go deeper in and realize, like, wait a second. So, like, I'm not happy and I should be. And then there's the whole like, but what if I'll never find anyone to love again? And you will. Just all of that stuff. And that, like, that journey, well, that was the beginning of the journey. And now, like, as I've gotten older, it's just gotten weirder with like the animals and stuff.
Yeah, constant evolution, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, thank you again. This was such a gift. This was so fun.
Yay. Oh, thank you
Look
so
forward.
much.
Yeah, I can't wait to connect with you further. Oh, all right. What an incredible episode. Isn't Em so special and equally hilarious too? I love this girl. I hope you all connected just as deeply with her as I did. And again, I so recommend working with her in some capacity, as communicating with our animals is so fun. And last but not least, of course, if you are feeling inspired from today's conversation, I would be honored to have you rate and review the show. Your ratings and reviews truly mean so much to me and our wonderful guests, and in return, they also help me to grow the show and continue bringing on more incredible individuals. I'm so grateful. So grateful for all of you. So thank you again for tuning in and being a part of this community. Thank you, Em, for holding space with us. And I look forward to continuing the journey with you again soon.